Peace, progress, game boards, objects, viewed like pawns till we change up our mindset. Value of the dollars at the center of this conflict. Their lives only matter if they serve to make a profit. But if a midget sees further on the shoulders of the giant, then we should see further than the tyrant and build a future within alliance where success is our science in the quest to go higher. It's the heart of the city.
Wake up, world. I'm your host, Malik Boyd. Welcome to another episode of HeartCity TV. I'm really excited about this episode. There's much to talk about around the country. Yes, the show title, A Nation Forward. How do we move this nation forward? As we are broadcasting right now, there is conversation in DC, whether it be 1600 or the halls of Congress, Capitol Hill, discussing the future of this country, how we move forward post a tumultuous administration. How do we deal with, quite frankly, a violent pendulum swing that has occurred over the last few years? And we're going to talk today not just about the pendulum swing that most media outlets are talking about, but how did we get to that pendulum swing? How did it become so violent? What are the forces behind that? And we'll talk about some things that you probably might not have thought about as it relates to politics, but how they play a role in making a difference. Before I start the show, I want to give a shout out to a great young individual. His name is Brandon. He's in North Carolina. He is 8 years old. He sent me a video this morning, basically putting me in check. It's like, look, I watch your show, and quite frankly, I'm getting prepared to be a host just like you. Brandon, listen, don't be like me, be better than me. And so I'm hoping that you see this portion of the show, and I hope it motivates you to continue to stay in school. Do all the great things that you're doing, listen to your parents, but get all the great information so that you can take the baton and run with it and make a difference for our people. With that said, there is much to talk about and much to pray about, but we all know faith without works is dead. And so, yes, we do pray here on this show. We started off in prayer. I am excited to have my brother, Pastor Jody Almond, with us once again. This brother is absolutely phenomenal. He is the senior pastor over at Transformation Church in Salisbury, North Carolina. Pastor, it is a pleasure to welcome you back home. Heart City.
Absolutely, man. Great to be back. Thank you.
We need your prayer, brother.
Amen. Amen.
Best way I can put this. The climate is quite challenging.
Absolutely.
We do know that all things do work together for the good of them that love him and are called to according to his purposes. And so with those who believe, those who understand the Creator, they know who they are and whose they are. We're going to ask you to lead us into our 2-minute prayer for the city.
Amen. Thank you, Malik. All right, everybody, let's pray. Father, in the name of Jesus, we come to you today, and God, we just pray for our nation. God, we pray for every person in leadership. We pray for every person in their home, every person from the White House to our house. God, we lift up to you right now. God, you tell us to pray for our leadership. And so, Lord, we lift them up to you, and we ask you to just guide them in all the decisions that they're making. This is such a volatile time for our country. This is such a pivotal time for our country. And God, I pray right now that you would just guide the hearts of men. Holy Spirit, may you move on their hearts and their minds, and may you guide them into wisdom and understanding as they lean to you, I pray. Not to our own understanding, but lean to your understanding, that you'll direct their paths and make things straight. There's a lot of crookedness that has happened and a lot of things that have gone on. But God, I pray that you would straighten those paths, and that God, for every principality and power and wickedness in high places, that God, you would pull it down, cast it down, remove it from this country and this nation. And God, let your people, the kingdom of God, let it rise back up to the forefront of America once again. Lord, we love you today, and we thank you for our country. We thank you for being blessed to be in this great nation. But God, we pray that you would help us to turn back to you and to restore the faith in America again. Lord, we love you and we praise you today, and we thank you that, dear God, our full trust is in God and not just in government, but in God alone. And God, we thank you for that. And we ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Pastor, thank you so much for covering the broadcast audience in prayer. What's happening on your side of the kingdom? I mean, obviously, CNN is reporting what's happening in D.C., the MSNBCs, the Fox of the world, the CBSs. But I think it's important for everyone to kind of hear from leaders who are entrenched in the communities about what the pulse is, and more importantly, how we get to unification in this divisive time.
Yeah, thank you, Malik. I'm connected with all nationalities and all people groups and cultures. And so, in that, I get to hear a lot of the different perspectives of things. And, I'm finding that there's just still a lot of uncertainty, it seems, with people. It seems that they're just uncertain about the future. What does it look like on every front? That's the common denominator. And, I think if, of course, me being faith-based, I think if we can go back and restore our faith, Malik, into knowing that we may not know what the future holds, but I know who holds tomorrow in his hand, and trust him. And as you said, faith without works is dead. So we have to do our part, right? Yeah. And so do our part, but don't allow, this is what I encourage. We have to, at the end of the day, Malik, I have to come to my home with my neighbors of every nationality.
Yeah.
And so that's what I have to remember. And I can't go out here and criticize a group of people because of the color of their skin, or I can't go out here and criticize a group of people for their political, association. Right. I have to realize that people have choices. They can make those choices, and we should respect one another. And if we can just get back, and this is what I feel we've lost, Malik, on top levels of our leadership, is there's no respect. There's no respect for people anymore. There's no respect for the Constitution, the White House, any of it. It seems that it's just been chunked out the window. And so I think we need to get back to respecting and loving people as fellow human beings, and we'll see a lot of this turn around and get back where it needs to be.
I agree 110%. As you were talking, you mentioned coming back home and I have to come back home to this diverse community, neighbors from all walks of life. I think back to Martin Luther King Jr. and that inescapable net of mutuality, understanding what happens to me happens to us all, and vice versa. Yes. That has become a unicorn principle, so to speak, in these recent years. Everyone has been for self. Yeah. Me, myself, and I. If I give a hip hop analogy, De La Soul released the record, Me, Myself, and I, and everyone is there on that principle. It seems like it's a heart issue, to be very honest. If it's not in the heart, it's not going to come out in legislation. It's not going to come out in service to people. And so how do we begin to deal with the heart issues? Because you can't legislate love. It has to be inside of an individual, right?
Right. Yeah, Malik, I was actually just speaking to some leaders recently, and in doing that, I shared with them that, as a pastor, it's not enough to just love people. We have to lead people. Yeah. And I think, again, that goes back up to that highest level of our form of government. And, when we're leading, we have to think about what we say is an example. What we do is an example. The way we react to situations is an example. And trust me, as a leader, I understand sometimes we put too much pressure maybe on leadership, but at the same time, we have to, as leaders, comprehend that there are people looking to us. There's people looking to us as an example. So talking about the heart thing, that's where I go back to what I mentioned in my prayer, Malik. God tells us to pray for our leaders. And I do believe that it's deeper rooted than just simply flesh and blood and agenda. I believe there's a spiritual agenda that's happening in our world today. And I believe that we have to combat that with the only way we can, which is to combat it with prayer and asking God to guide those people, deal with their hearts. And the Bible says God can turn the hearts of kings. And so it's no doubt he can handle anybody on any level. So we just have to pray for those people, Malik.
Indeed. And so I look in the chat. Sonia Sessom says, message. It's not just enough to love, but lead. And so I think that principle that you're teaching your staff and your team is applicable across all walks of life. And so speaking of the team and the footprint of ministry, talk about how one who's watching this broadcast now can worship and fellowship with you in the ministry.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, we're located online. We're on YouTube. We're located on Facebook, of course, and it's just Transformation Church. There may be several because that's became a popular name, it seems. Indeed. But we're located, as you said, Malik, in Salisbury, North Carolina. It's spelled like Salisbury steak, Salisbury, North Carolina. And that's where you can find us. Just do a little search or find me, Jody Almond, on Facebook, and you can trace it through there. But we'd love to have you join. We're live every Sunday morning at 10 a.m. And right now I'm doing it from home, right now because of COVID. But we have some amazing services and empowering people already in 2021. So we'd love to have them join.
Hey, and we'd love to worship with you. And I'm sure the virtual experience is equally as powerful. Before we go, you have a book.
Yes, sir.
If I did not talk about that, tell the broadcast audience about this book, what they can find in it and how to purchase.
Amen, Malik. We're actually right at the 1-year anniversary of my release. And so you can find it. It's called Going All In, Finding Success Through Surrender. And you can find that on Amazon, or you can go to my website at Solution, S-O-U-L, and then Ushan, just like a solution, but add a U in there. solutionministries.com, and you can find out all about me and what I'm involved in and how I'm empowering people around the world. So yeah, thank you for that, Malik.
Always, Pastor. I appreciate you covering us in prayer. May God continue to give increase, not just on your life, but the life of the ministry as well.
Thank you, my friend.
Thank you. So we've been covered in prayer. I'm excited. Pastor Jody Almond is a juggernaut in the space. And I love to use that word, but I use it for those who are actually present in that way. He is such an individual. Make sure you check him out. We'll make sure we post the book link because we want to support, keyword, support all of those who are doing great work in the community. And also check out Transformation Church. Visit them, know their worship experience. If you're in the footprint as they open up, make a physical visit. But you can also find them online. All of those links will be there. I'm going to a break. On the other side, I have Brother Bilal Qayyum and Martin Pratt to talk about the issues of the day. We're trying to move this nation forward. It's going to take all of us. Yes, you. It's going to take you too. And we'll talk about all of those issues and more on the other side. Take out your stethoscope. You're watching HeartCity TV. We'll be right back.
Yo, what's up? This is Will I Am, and you're watching HeartCity TV.
We're back. You're watching HeartCity TV. This next guest, you know him well. He's been on the show numerous times. We talk about his walk from Philadelphia to Harrisburg to address the issues in the community. We talk about the Fathers Initiative to ensure that fathers have the resources to continue to be the great pillars that they are in the community. We talk about his work in the political space to make sure that legislators understand the priorities that are important to the people and the community. He has an artist side that you'll hear about too. I'm going to pick some of that out as well. All of that culminates into the legend that we know. Brother Bilal Qayyum, it is an honor to have you back on Heart City. Welcome home and Happy New Year.
Same to you and to your listening audience.
So Brother Bilal, we had a ridiculous year in 2020 as it relates to gun violence. The murder rate, especially here in Philadelphia, was insane. It exceeded projections. I mean, they went from conservative to, let's put a buffer onto it to make sure that we don't exceed that. And then we exceeded that. They adjusted it. We exceeded it again. You're on the front lines. You deal with this every day. What happened in 2020? What were the issues? And how can we pretty much curtail this ongoing wave as we move into 2021?
Malik, I think it was a combination of things. I mean, the virus, the more I look at this, the virus did have something to do with it. People are home. People are at a level of depression because they can't operate the way they normally do. Young folks don't want to stay home, so they're in the streets. So the more young folks in the streets, the more possibility conflicts will occur. So I think that's one thing. The availability of guns is a big factor. If I'm pissed or mad at you, and I could get my hand on a gun, or I have a gun, I'll use it. Unfortunately, to settle our dispute. Most shootings in the city of Philadelphia consistently is arguments. So if I'm arguing with you, I have a dispute with you, it turns into anger and I have a gun, I'll shoot you. If I shoot you, your family knows I shot you, there could be potential for retaliation. If I'm a young person, I shoot you, my homies, my boys want to shoot you. I mean, they want to retaliate. So I think it's part of it. But the other thing is very important to me, I've been talking a lot about recently, is the long-term, I think 2020 was a tipping year for a lot of things. First of all, the virus, people didn't know how to deal with that. Around the violence, unemployment was up. People were being laid off. They didn't have incomes, which creates frustration, creates less of hope. And also it creates anger. So most arguments, got to remember, lead to gunplay in the city of Philadelphia is the leading cause of shootings. Now, let me just quickly say this. What I think is happening too, and I'm talking about it more and more, is the whole effect of institutional white racism in our society and in the city of Philadelphia. If you lock out a group of people, most shootings in the city of Philadelphia, most homicides, unfortunately, are Black males. You lock Black males out of inclusion, of opportunities to work or start on their own business, be able to get a loan to if they are working, get a loan to buy a house. You consistently lock those folks out of those opportunities and inclusion in society. That group of folks, which is Black men, is going to withdraw. They're angry. Most likely the anger is taken out to the person closest to them, which is another Black person, because in the city of Philadelphia, we don't talk about this either. There's a lot of segregated communities. White folks live in certain areas, Black folks live in certain areas, Asians live in certain, so there's this segregation going on. So once again, I think all that is like you put it all in a pot and you're mixing it up for a stew.
Right.
What happened in 2020, it all came out and blew up.
It's amazing because I think when I think about going to the range, that's an expensive ordeal just in itself, right? I mean, bullets are expensive. When we talk about, this curled up piece of metal with gunpowder in it, and the decision in the middle of COVID and economic impact to either feed my family or buy, 16 bullets. Something has to give here. And to your point, you talk about institutional racism, but I also wonder, how are these weapons and the ammunition becoming so prevalent in, underserved communities? I'll put it that way.
It's big money. It's like drugs. it sells. You know, guns is a big market now. Everybody wants to have a gun because everybody's in fear now. I mean, that crap going on in Washington, D.C., stuff. And not only Philadelphia, because we talk about Philadelphia, but all the major cities in America saw a spike in gunplay in the Black community. Across Atlanta, New York, Boston, it doesn't matter. There was a spike in gunplay across urban areas in America and Black communities. So it's big money. I mean, some folks make more money selling guns than they could make money selling drugs. Wow. So that's it. And my frustration is why are we stopping some of the gun flow? I know you can't stop all the gun flow, but why are we stopping the gun flow? People know you could go to these gun shows. Matter of fact, I just saw on social media before I plugged into you, there's a big gun show somewhere in Pennsylvania.
Oh, in Oaks, PA.
No, it's not Oaks. This is another city. I wasn't aware of this one. But they have the gun show next week, I think.
Wow.
And it's big. Once again, it's a big money in that. So folks, and because everybody's fearful now because of what's happening in Washington, what's happening in the hood. More and more folks are buying guns than ever before in the Black community, I believe. You just talked about going to the gun range. There's a lot of gun clubs now. Think about the number of women now are involved in gun clubs and learning how to shoot for protection. A lot of young Black males walk around the streets of the city of Philadelphia with a gun on them because they're scared, not because they intend to shoot you or me, but they're scared. They don't want to be caught without a gun if they come upon someone and the argument happens and that person has a gun. So it's a major problem that once again I think we have to address. Now, getting all the guns, is that going to stop the violence? No, as we know, but it would definitely cut down in the number of murders in the city of Philadelphia. I think the number is around 85% of all homicides in the Philadelphia. Gun is the weapon of choice.
So you bring up a good point. No, we can't stop the wave. I mean, the wave is much deeper than us. We talked about this last year, the year before that, like Operation Fast and Furious, going after some of the more heavyweights, the Colombian drug lords. What happened was they allowed for the smaller actors to bring guns into the states. So, Texas and other states became gateways that led guns up to Chicago and these other places, ultimately onto the streets of our community, quite frankly. And so this is a much bigger issue than putting a wall up and trying to stop guns from flowing through. They're going to happen. You're doing an effort right now, conducting an effort with various leaders, faith-based and civic, also as well as city council and others, for a gun buyback. Talk about that event.
Yeah, we were had a great opportunity. A young lady named Emily Clark approached me after reaching out to city council, where she's a young lady from a white lady from Chestnut Hill.
Wow.
So she's tired of this gunplay going on. How can she help? She reached out to city council folks and they referred it to me. And we sat down and talked and found out that she is part of the Greenfield family, Albert Greenfield, who was a major developer in the city years ago. He has a foundation and I applied. They have some money, so I applied to their foundation. They gave me a grant, Father's Day Rally Committee. So we're doing a gun buyback next Saturday, January 23rd from 10 to 2. If you turn in a handgun or a semi-automatic, you would get $100 gift certificate from Jeff Brown ShopRite. During these hard times, getting $100 to buy some food will help. So we're encouraging anyone that knows has a gun, handgun. I got to emphasize, we're not giving out gift certificate for long guns, or people refer to as rifles. You could turn one in, but we're not giving. We want to focus on the guns that are being used in the streets that are creating havoc. Last year was 2,200 murders. 2,200 shootings.
Wow.
In the city of Philadelphia. We talk about the 499. As of yesterday, there was 68 shootings in the city of Philadelphia since January 1st. 68. 13 homicides. So I know how important, us getting guns off the streets that are in the wrong hands of folks. So we're encouraging folks to come out. It's 2 locations. Reverend Lester's Church on North Broad Street. It's called
Greater Exodus.
Greater Exodus. I'm sorry, 704 North Broad Street.
Yeah.
Bishop James Robinson in South Philadelphia at 2301 Snyder Avenue. And I always mess up this name. So you got
Yesha Ministry.
Yesha Ministry.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So both of those ministers stepped up, and they're part of this effort from 10 to 2. No questions asked. Bring a gun in, or a handgun, or a semi-automatic. You would get a $100 gift certificate to go to any of Jeff Brown's ShopRite stores. And we're committed. We're hopefully, our goal is to try to do as many gun banks as possible this year in 2021, and we can get guns off the street.
And listen, broadcast audience, understand, I need you to promote this event. We're going to post the graphic for this buyback on the social media pages. Please share it across the spectrum, because here's the deal. We've got to convince Lil Ray, Lil Lamar, Junebug, whoever it is on the block that that's holding. We've got to get that gun out of their hands. Yes, it is a public safety issue, and I think it's really important that we talk about that as well, because if young brothers do not feel safe on the street, they're not going to relinquish their weapons. So we have to have a dual conversation. More importantly, we've got to stop. I mean, honestly, 400 murders was absolutely insane, and it's something that we cannot repeat. We've got to leave all of 2020 in 2020. And so, again, this gun buyback, Yesha Ministries, with Bishop Robinson and with Pastor Herb Lusk over at Greater Exodus. You can go to those 2 locations, no questions asked. Turn in the gun, and they give you the criteria as well, and we'll make sure that we post that. And this is what you get: $100 gift certificate to Jeff Brown's ShopRite. Now, understand, $100 at Jeff Brown's ShopRite goes a little bit further than what you're going to get at Target, okay? Because Target, I'm not picking on y'all, but it's like 4 Doritos, a Starbucks, and maybe a notepad, and it's $100. At Jeff Brown's, you're going to get some meat, potatoes, you're going to get some stuff that lasts throughout the week. And so let's take care of our community, take care of our families by doing the right thing. Now, Brother Bilal, there's some art in the back. I would be remiss if I did not talk about the great work that you're doing in the art space. Tell the broadcast audience about your art briefly, and then more importantly, how they can purchase it.
Well, number one, I majored in art at Overbrook High School in the 60s. I went to, there's a place called Fletcher's Art School in South Philadelphia, well known. Went to that art school on Saturdays, but during the day, when I was at Overbrook, I majored in art, and I been fortunate enough to, have a skill that, I don't know, artists can be taught. I think you're born, but so I haven't painted in 38 years. So I was home, as everybody was, because I'm at that age and I'm vulnerable for the virus. So I've been, home as much as possible. And you could do all you could do, but so much reading, looking at television, whatever it is.
Right.
Cleaning up, making repairs in your house that you hadn't done, you should have done. Your wife's on your back. You need to do this and do that.
Right.
So I picked up one day back in March.
Okay.
And I had some paint and paintbrush and I started painting. And I, after 38 years, I haven't been able to stop. I paint every day almost. One of the pieces behind me, as you see, is a piece I call The Madness. The virus madness is about, you see the faces and stuff on it. It's, about the virus and people staying home and stuff. And I have around 30 something paintings now.
Wow.
I started, because I'm painting now, I started a business. So I'm an entrepreneur. For years, I put thousands of people, I helped thousands of people get into business and supported them. Now I'm an entrepreneur. And I have a web page. It's called the Qayyum Collection LLC.com. So anyone can go on my web page and see my work and can purchase my artwork. I've been fortunate enough, Malik. I have sold 5 paintings since this summer.
Beautiful.
And so because I'm an entrepreneur now, I really appreciate you giving me this plug. Because it's interesting. After all the work I've been involved since high school, going back in the 60s. So you're talking about around 55 years. Yeah. I've been involved in trying to improve the conditions of Black folks in the community. I tell you this marketing myself. Yeah. I've been very, very uncomfortable. Well, we got you covered. I'm in a new box now. Yeah. You know how we got these different boxes, I say, in life, different challenges and stuff. So I've been very uncomfortable trying to market myself, but I'm on Instagram and I'm out there now. So I gotta market myself. So once again, I appreciate this opportunity you're giving me today, to talk about my artwork. And I have a part of my artwork is promote art as part of life. There's really and it's no separation to me now. The more I'm doing this, and in the movement, the movement days, art was very important to the movement, from singing to print to painting. It was very big in the 60s and the 70s. So,
listen, one thing I want the broadcast audience to know, the history that comes with your paintings, it's just as much the mind and the story behind the painting as it is the actual painting itself. So I'm excited about it. We're going to make sure that we post your work and the links on our social media. Please, broadcast audience, support one of our legends, Brother Bilal Qayyum, and the great work that he's doing, not just in the art space, but take care of that too. Grab a painting, but also make sure that you promote the gun buyback. That's really important. I know in the comments, Kelly Blackman, she said Ray has to put the gun down. You're absolutely right. Brother Bilal is doing that work, and we appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much for tuning in today and giving us some of your time.
Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it. And the great work you're doing. Keep it up, brother.
Yes, sir. So we've heard from our legend, Brother Bilal Qayyum. We're going to make sure that you support him in the great work that he's doing in the community and in the artistic space. So if you're following us on social media, which you should be, right? That's supposed to happen. If you're not, you're going to get an email from Kendall, because she's going to want to know why you're not clicking the notifications and the subscribe links. But on our Facebook, we talked about our question of the day. Yes, we used to post thoughts and questions of the day on Facebook, but we transitioned because we believe in new technologies and ones that work. We like to stay ahead of the curve. And so, yes, while everyone is on Clubhouse, and that's a great thing, and we think it's equally as important, and we'll join there as well. There is a new app called Swell, and we are on Swell right now, talking about the questions of the day, the issues of the day, and you get to hear and post your comments amongst others around these topics. Now, our question of the day was this: do you agree with the social media ban on President Trump? Now, for many of you, I get it. You're frustrated at President Trump. You're frustrated at the Republican legislature and anything that can be done to stop this moving train. You're down for. I get it. But for every action, there's a reaction, and then that reaction creates some ripples. And so we asked the world, what do you think about this social media ban? I'm excited because this brother here, Martin Pratt, who's the co-founder of Philly Your Black News, he chimed in as well to give value and said, look, I got to come on and talk about this issue. And we support Black media around here. And so I'm excited about this, brother Martin. Welcome home to Heart City, my guy. It's good to see you, man.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir. So we got an issue to deal with. Social
Yes,
media
sir.
fans of a president. Now,
Yes,
I've
sir.
never seen a president stripped from social media. I mean, that's just insane to even think about. And yes, social media has been relatively new. Nonetheless, a muted head of a country is something we have to really contend with now. But there's reactions to this because we've complained about the bans and the power that social media has had to control our voice. In fact, people were erroneously posting even last year, the top of last year. Remember, they were putting that little quote there, based on Act 27-4567, my post belongs to me and me alone. And Facebook was like, yeah, that's nice. Say it again. We're deleting you and your account. And then everybody got used to Facebook jail based on the algorithm. Whatever you said, whatever keyword brought out, whatever trigger, you spent sometimes 5 days, 15 days. Some people got sat in solitary confinement. And so we've got to contend with this. It's not just the knee-jerk reaction of knocking off a president in his voice.
Right.
What's the overall effect in this ban?
Well, I think there's several layers. That's why I wanted to come on. I actually wanted to come on because my wife has a different reaction to what her timeline shows. My timeline, I follow people like you, the mayor, Sarah Lomax, so I don't see the same reaction that my wife sees. My wife's originally from Louisiana and they a little ratchet. So in her timeline, Black people were, they did it to Trump, we next. And book of us, like, what? Like, this is not the same thing. Yeah. So I didn't know if your question was sort of, looking at the stuff that was happening in the last 3 or 4 days on social media and saying, okay, it seems to be bubbling up that African Americans are in fear of what was done to Trump can easily turn around to Black folks.
Yeah, it's funny you said that. Because I'm looking at my Instagram right now, okay? And so on my Instagram, apparently some of that Louisiana gumbo slid its way on up to my timeline because especially the younger demographic, they're going, absolutely not. This is the beginning of global, censorship. And then there's some that are just like, hey, they should have
done this
from the beginning. Right.
Exactly. Yeah, so my background is from Black Planet days, and I happen to be in the same neighborhood as Omar Wasu, who's a founder of Black Planet. And Brother Wasu was the person who created MSNBC, the first iteration of MS and NBC. He designed that website. Yep. So we've been, Black people particularly, have been on social media since the 90s. We were the first to create DMs. Yeah. So Black Planet and Black Voices didn't have DMs. And then there was a Spanish site called Mi Gente. So Black and brown people created social networking. That's number one.
Can we just stop and pay homage to Black Planet? I mean, because
it's still around. It's got 11 million people over there.
There you go. And there's folks that don't even know about Black Planet. I mean, before y'all get into all this other stuff that y'all been following, understand what we enjoy now, what it was built on. It was built on.
Right.
And there were no photos. If you remember the earlier iterations, I mean, you just remembered screen names. So you really had to, if you were about just kicking it to somebody, you really had to have some
screen name. Right.
Oh yeah, it was about screen names. So talk about the dialogue on the Black Planet versus what we're seeing now. Is there that kind of created this environment?
So Black Planet was really created. It was originally called New York Online. New York Online was a local bulletin board service. For those of you who don't remember bulletin boards, those are the modems that talk to each other and went like that. Yeah. And so the bulletin board service didn't have a graphical interface. So you couldn't see graphic. You could just see words, and that was a text. That was it. Kind of like DOS and before Windows. So when www came out, World Wide Web came out, and you could put graphics, Omar was like, yo, I need to move over from New York Online to www. And interesting about Omar, he was always a trailblazer. His bulletin board service had the ability to see graphics.
Yeah.
I don't remember what program he used or whatever, but the point is, and actually it's point of reference, right now you can Google AfroNet, the word Afro and net, and UPenn. There's a list up on Penn's website of Black dial-in numbers. You can dial in across the country in 92 to talk to any Black person. We had our own net called AfroNet.
Yes.
So we ain't new to this. We true to this.
Yes, sir.
What Omar did was really about meeting people. And of course, we morphed it into dating.
Right.
So the original concept of Black Planet was like, around the corner is a sister. I'm trying to kick it to her.
Yeah.
That was Black Planet. Now, Black Voices, though, however, I'm trying to think of the brother. I can't think of his name around my head, but the brother that created Black Voices, his was more of a political, a real dialogue, deep discussions, hours and almost like very smart brothers are today. Layers, a lot of characters and a lot of arguments and a lot of comments.
Right.
And Black Voices created something called meetups.
Yeah.
Black Voices had meetups around the country. 2000 comes meetup.com.
There you go.
So, and another point of reference, just every time I get on the stage, I got to say this one thing. Yeah. Domain names were created by a Black man named Emmett McHenry. Brother McHenry created Network Solutions, the site we see today.
Yes, sir.
He could not get funded. He had to sell the site, and it sounds like a lot of money today, $5 million. Yeah. But the 3 white guys that bought the site, they were able to sell it for $21 billion.
Yep.
Just think about that. Yep. He went to every place he could as far as our people, and nobody was interested in domain names. They're like, domain name, what are you talking about? Couldn't see it. Going back to your original question, the conversation on Black Planet, it kind of matches today. It was a little ratchet. It was, I get a lot of pushback on Clubhouse when I hear that. They're like, "Oh, Black Planet, taking back to when I was had my picture up." Yeah. I tell people, your account is still active. Black Planet, your page might be still there. You might need to go over there and take it down. But anyway, and Kathy Hughes owns it now. It was sold from Community Color to Kathy Hughes Company. So, but I think the one thing I definitely want to leave the audience with is what happened was an actual act, in my opinion, this is my opinion, it's not the opinion of Heart City, that there was an actual act of treason done. Yeah. There was seditious talk that allowed action to be taking place. Not just on social media. That day, someone got on stage, and my history is I was there when Mayor Dinkins was shuttled out of the city hall in 1992, I believe it was also, where an entire 10,000 troop of NYPD on a Saturday destroyed New York City Hall. If you just Google NYPD, Mayor Giuliani led that charge. Yeah. And they rioted. Yeah. Cops rioted. Yeah. They broke windows. And so when I saw Giuliani say trial by combat, I had PTSD. Yeah. I was remembering New York was flourishing. Small black nonprofits like Brother Bilal's was getting grants. Right. Dinkins was making sure there was a cop on every block. That wasn't Giuliani that did. That was Dinkins that instituted that. And Giuliani was running against Dinkins, and he had the unions with him, and they destroyed City Hall. They destroyed the park. They rioted. They did. And I was sitting there watching this guy on stage, like, wait, this is the same thing that happened. So for me, what was done on social media is a protection for the country. There's if we allowed this person, and not just him, but the entire troops of people, because he had millions of followers. Yeah. If we allowed that to happen, to stay on social media, who knows where we might be today? Because if he was still allowed to I would normally say a different word, to complain and moan, then we could see all kind of actions being taken. By him being muted, don't you feel a little less pressure? Don't you feel a little less stress? And yes, his people are saying to the FBI, and the FBI is letting Congress know there might be some violence, but there also might be false flags, because we've seen this before. They're not the smartest people on the planet. I mean, I just want us to really go inside and say, if you're on social media and you're threatening people and you're asking for someone to be they actually said, the lawyer of the president said, to assassinate the vice president.
Yeah.
We can't allow that to be on social media. I can't say to you, I want to see the mayor gone. You know, Philly FOPX is gonna be at my door.
Oh, so if we remember during the Black Lives Matter marches just this summer, I mean, people were getting door knocks from some special departments and didn't even post anything close to what. And
in certain cities, they were not just being a door knock; they were actually snatched. Not in our city, thank God.
I was trying to be nice as a kid, right? So, however, you're absolutely right. They were being totally snatched. Yeah. Right. So it's challenging to see electeds of different color, white folk, be able to say what they're saying on social media, get away with it, a slap on the wrist. And quite frankly, you know, here's a key point for everybody to understand. 2/3 of the individuals in Facebook extremist groups were sent there by the Facebook algorithm itself. So banning Trump is one thing. However, the algorithm said, oh, you know what? You like that? Let me introduce you to a group of folk that want to get.
Let me give you more of what you like.
Yeah. And so there's a great conversation.
There's a great movie on Netflix that I encourage everyone to watch called Social Dilemma.
Yes, sir.
Watch that. Now, Black Planet was not set up that way.
Right.
I will say, however, one of the things that we did, I mean, I wasn't part of it at that point, but one of the things that Black Planet did do was to pop up as soon as you walk into Black Planet. Yeah. Once they figured out that they can make money from charging you to find the right girl or boy or whoever, they would post it as soon as you walked into the website. It would be like, hey, you want to find a date?
Yeah,
$2.95 will get you another level of Black Planet VP.
Right,
and that is the beginning stages of feeding you, because we knew you were coming to Black Planet to hook up. The Black Planet, you trying to find the Black people for whatever reason. So we're going to give that to you. Now these white boys then took that to a whole nother level.
Level, brother.
And there's accountability as a corporation. You know, I honestly, the Congress is trying to make sure that people can't sue, families cannot sue people based on COVID. And I feel like one of the main reasons is because a lot of Republican and / lawmakers have said, wear a mask. No, they've said stuff to me that's directly led to deaths of Americans on these platforms. Yeah. And these platforms haven't necessarily, they did, you know, the last 3 months or last 2 months, well, maybe it's November, so we give them 3 months. Last 3 months, they've started saying, oh, there's a false thing. But think about it. Back in March, you know, Ted Cruz and other people like him say, a mask is going to stop us from having freedom. And it's like, no, it keeps us alive, you idiot. Yeah. And unfortunately, or fortunately, the governor of Georgia reopened Black things that Black people could get access to, but kept the white things closed.
Pretty much.
And so where are you going to take that? Where are you going as an individual who believes what they see on the screen? At what point does that website platform take some responsibility and locks down those messages? Yeah. And I think it's it's imperative to their business model that they act right now, you know, versus acting later like they did in the past.
No more knee-jerk reactions. Get ahead of it. As we see over the last 4 years, playing knee-jerk just led to a bunch of jerks. And and they didn't get knees on their necks. They didn't get any of the things that we would ever get. They were free to roam. They had the Southwest, Southwest Airlines, where you get the little ding. You're free to roam about the cabin. They were free to do things that we would never. The melanated folk would never be able to do. In fact, in Philadelphia, you even tried to get into City Hall or 1515 JFK. There was armored trucks waiting for you.
No,
so it's clear there's a difference in disparity. Martin, listen, I honor you, brother. Your wisdom, your insight, and your homage to Black Planet, brother. You took me back on that one. AOL dial-up. Shout out to the AOL dial-up crew.
That's right. So
it's
the messenger.
tell the broadcast audience how they can connect with you. You're doing amazing work in the journalism space. It's important that we support Black leaders in journalism and in media spaces. So how do they connect and vibe with you, brother?
Sure. LMJ Pratt. So LMJ Pratt. I'm that everywhere on all social platforms and also on Clubhouse. And now I gotta go over to Swell, I guess.
Yeah.
You know, it's like the number 8 thing I gotta go do.
Yeah. But it's
Yeah.
worth it, man. Your voice is important. I honor it, and I ask my broadcast audience to embrace your voice and honor it as well.
One thing I wanted to let the audience know, if there's any questions they have, they want me to pose to the mayor or to Dr. Farley every Tuesday at the press conference. White people slide in my DMs all the time. I want the brothers and sisters to slide in the DMs and say, hey, Martin, I need to ask the mayor why 52nd Street and so-and-so is always closed and there's no more riots, you know, whatever the question is. I have no problem posing that to the mayor or to the police commissioner or acting city man. Well, not acting city manager. But yes, so slide in those DMs and let me know what I need to do.
Listen, guys, make good use of the DMs. Get in Martin's DM and get your questions answered by those who are in power and can create change. Brother Martin, we honor you, brother. Thank you, man. This is always home for you. Whenever you want to slide through and give us some voices of wisdom, feel free.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. So we've heard from my brother, Martin Pratt. Make sure you follow him, Philly Your Black News. And as he said, connect with him on all of the social media platforms. There's just tons of wisdom there. More importantly, access. We need access in those spaces. Everybody can't be in the same rooms. But nonetheless, if we're connecting together, we can make a difference. And so I'm always excited about this portion of the show. It's EKG time. My brother Akil and Kelli Brown have joined us today for the EKGs. I am so excited to have both of you with us. Unmute your mics and let's get into this one here. It's good to have you with us. Can you see your mics?
Yeah.
There you go. Welcome,
you hear me now?
home. Welcome home, family. It's good to see you. Happy New Year to you guys. It's good to see you in good spirits, and I hope that all is well where you are.
Yeah. It's good to see. It's good to see Kelli. Kelli, we go back to Philadelphia Freedom School days.
Yes, we do. It's good to see you, brother.
Yeah.
There you go. So I'm excited about this EKG. You guys are ready for the EKGs?
Yeah.
Let's go.
This is the EKG, the part of the show where we place America front and center on the monitors of the American people. We will look for irregularities in the heartbeat, offer solutions on the issues we find in order to make America healthy once again. So fire up the machine. Let's start the EKG.
So this week's EKGs are brought to you by Deshuri CBD products, minority owned and operated. Make sure you check them out at mydeshuri, DASHURI.com. Our first story is an interesting one. I'm pretty sure both of you are going to jump right on this one. NPR is reporting a quiet and unsettling pandemic toll. Students who have fallen off the grid. Now, we've talked about this last year, and so we're addressing it even now. For American families and their children, school is, social life, is community, it's an athletic center, a place to get meals that you can't at home. And the coronavirus and the pandemic have disrupted it in profound ways. An estimated 3 million students may have dropped out of school learning since March, according to Bellwether Education Partners. Kelli, that number is insane. 3 million kids are saying this is too much. I don't have what I need. The environment within, this corona pandemic is one of such that I have to make a hard decision. I'm out. How do we handle this? How do we deal? Because this is the fallout that's going to impact us for years to come, long after vaccines are doing what they're doing. I mean, 3 million kids unprepared, 3 million of our children unprepared for the future is unacceptable. Is there a way to solid ground?
Unacceptable, you're right. But it's also it's going to take more than just one answer, one solution, as we all know and understand. But the numbers are staggering. And we thought before the pandemic that our children were behind. Well, we knew before the pandemic that many of our young people in America are behind in education. But now adding this extra layer, it's become an even more bigger civil rights issue. And I've been saying civil rights issue because the right to fair and equal education was always a right. But in this moment, currently, there has to be something different. And when you look at districts and education, different districts, we're all trying to figure out different solutions to make sure like our children are okay, like Baltimore City District, right? Public schools, Philly, here and there. And then just realizing that these it seems to me that the smaller districts are struggling with trying to figure out that solution, because at this moment, even in Baltimore City, the students are going to go back very soon. I think they just released in the Baltimore Sun today that they'll be going back very soon in Baltimore City public schools, probably as early as February, with an option to still study virtually. However, teachers are still concerned about their safety of them as teachers, but also the young people and our broader community. And so we understand that as we find a solution, if it is going back in person to sharpen and tighten up in-person instruction, then there's going to be other issues that are going to come into play, right? That's going to, unfortunately, could cause another headline that you're probably going to show, right? So this is a catch-22 in many ways, where it's not going to be a one-size-fit-all solution. But I'm glad that you're having a conversation and we can begin to talk about what could work. And my number one solution is to erase everything that may have worked in the past in our minds and think like clean slate. Because a lot of us, as I talk to adults in education, even young people, when we're stuck in a framework of something that may have worked in the past because of different circumstances,
right?
We're trying to fit instruction into a virtual experience. But if we erase that and see how it may bring us to a better solution. So that's one thing that I've come to realize. That's my EKG for this.
Listen, you bring up great points. I can hear you. So Akil, Kelli works in amazing ways in the space through SpreadKarma, which is her platform, ensuring that she's leveraging business partnerships, private entities to come together and do some of this great work to pick up the slack, quite frankly, that the system leaves in scenarios like this. My brother, you're in education, adjunct professor, LaSalle and Cheyney. You see it from the education side as an instructor. I mean, how dangerous is in an environment when we have 3 million students who are unprepared for the next level?
Well, I think that what the pandemic has done is it's really just exposed something that has already been going on. I remember when I taught at Overbrook High School for 2 years, I would think about some of the students that I would consider like in school dropouts. A lot of them would come to school on a regular basis, semi-regular basis, only to avoid being harassed by truancy cops and having to go to truancy court or whatnot. Because a lot of times there's not a lot of engagement, even when they're in the building. But now, because the school buildings are closed and now students have to log in through laptops and through Zoom sessions or Google Meet or whatever platform, now you can actually see like who's really not tuned in. And actually even there's situations where like some students will log in, so they don't get harassed by truancy officials and whatnot. And those structures, they might have their camera off, or they might be logged in, but they might not really be logged in. They're not logged in.
Right.
So I think what the pandemic does is, again, it gives us another opportunity and an example where we should be motivated to really take ownership and control as a Black community for the education of Black children. And I'm sure a lot of those, millions, those 3 million are Black children, and predominantly probably in urban areas where they're not being served to be like, Dr. Clark always said, to become responsible handlers of power. Yeah. And so for children to become responsible handlers of power, we're gonna have to take control of their education anyway, and do some things that these public schools and charter schools are not equipped, to do anyway. That's not even their goal. Their goal is just to create, like even back, when Du Bois was around, right, and talking about hewers of wood and drawers of water. Right. A modern day version of that. Yeah. And that's not going to help us build an independent nation, and that's not even going to really help most people survive in this nation, even if their goal is just to assimilate, into and get a check every 2 weeks.
No, you're spot on. Here's something that we're seeing. There's a trend that's upticking around homeschooling. Do you think, Akil, that is really going to be the way to go in this new landscape? I mean, parents are making the decision, look, if I got to work at home and my job is adjusting to that, I'm going to make sure that I can give you the best education possible.
I think that's going to have to happen. I mean, I do the adjunct work, but, a lot of my engagement with the youth in the past year during the pandemic has been through my company, All This Math, doing virtual tutoring. Well, of course, before the pandemic, some of the tutoring was in person, but everything's virtual now. And just, me recognizing that, well, actually it's, the online tutoring is kind of like a manifestation of like what I always talk about, which is the need for independent educational spaces and us creating them. And I just think, more people in the community have to start doing that, and I think a lot of people don't do it because a lot of us get caught up in, well, I'm not a certified teacher, so I can't teach this, or, I'm not qualified or I'm not equipped. But, a lot of times we take for granted a lot of the skills that we have. And, young people will definitely benefit from a lot of the skills that, a lot of people in the community have, especially when you consider when the young people are going to school. If I had $1 for every time, like, a young brother, a young boy, like at any school that I've taught in the past said, my old head told me this or my old head told me that. Well, right. That's who he's getting his education from, or that's who she's getting her education from. And that person doesn't have an education degree, doesn't have a level 1 certification, doesn't have any of that. So I think that it does need to be, organized in some way. And, we need to start having some conversations about, the goal of, independent education. Because again, the pandemic again has exposed that this is something that is really necessary, and it's becoming an imperative as opposed to just something, a nice idea. Like it'd be a great idea, if we had independent, African-centered institutions and whatnot. That would be nice, but it's kind of difficult. We need resources, we need support. But when we start to change our mindset and start to think of it as, urgent and something that is mandatory, like, no, we have to, then I think that, there'll be more buy-in, because, the people want it. The people want a lot. And, I've gathered this from, again, my experience with tutoring. A lot of times people, we're under the assumption that, Black parents especially don't care enough about their children's education. They don't want tutoring for their children. But, I'm getting, emails and calls all the time, or, referrals all the time. And I, sometimes I have to turn people away or refer people to other people because I can't handle the capacity. But I think if there were more of us that were offering it, like if there was enough of a supply to meet the demand, then, things would be very different, because there's a demand, but sometimes the demand is not expressed and it's not vocalized or verbalized because people don't know that there's a supply. And oftentimes there isn't a supply in certain places.
Now, you bring up some great points, and I think broadcast audience know that there are those out there that are capable and are ready. And for those who are providers, know that there are brothers like Brother Akil, who's ready to partner up to make sure that we have capacity to do exactly what we need to do. Brother Akil brought up another great point. Listen, it can't just be an option. It has to be an obligation, something that we're going to commit to and make sure that our folk have what we need. We're going to post that story on our social media pages. Please join in and chime in around that topic. Here's our next story. The BART system. That's the transit system, right, in San Francisco. They are preparing to hire social workers instead of filling the police officer vacancies in order to deal with social problems. Now, they're going to use about $2 million to fill 6 vacant police officer positions so that they can hire social work trained civilians to respond to issues like homelessness, mental illness, drug addiction, and some of the other areas of impact that has plagued their train system. Kelli, I mean, this is what we talked about, right? We march for these kind of things. We were saying when we talk about defunding the police and some of these other phrases, as we begin to articulate it more, it's exactly that reallocation.
Yeah,
places and spaces that make more sense.
Yeah, I think that that is what we're working towards. I like to see that. I love to see that they're using social services in a different way and partnering with the police. I think this is a step in the right direction. Personal experience, my stepmother is actually for SEPTA, works for SEPTA as a police officer, and just recently just told me, like last week, we're on the phone. I'm like, how's it going? You know, I'm still worried about her. Popo. And she's telling me she's down by in Kensington, right? And so if you're from Philly, you know Kensington area. And she says, but they changed my my role. And I'm like, wow, what are you doing now? And she said, well, now same thing that you just saw with Bart, that they now have her in a different way. She's still a police officer for SEPTA, but working for the social services side. And her background has always been working for human services. And so I love this. She said what they do, they go out there every day now. And instead of arresting people down in Kensington area when they're heavily addicted to drugs, unfortunately, you know, the scene, they give them opportunities to get help. And they don't just quit after one time. And I the beauty of the conversation that we had on the phone that day made me realize that she understands that you will not make change immediately. They need people like that out there because she's seeing the same people day after day, but saying, okay, they get a bracelet now. Okay, that means I saw and talked to you. That it also has the number where you can call me later, but I'll be back. And she understands she's not going to change. She won't change the situation immediately, but those same people that need help, not need to be arrested, she will be back in due time to make sure that they will get the help that they need. And so I think that we're working towards, you know, a positive change, and we're living in the thick of it, right? So I don't know if it'll be right away. I know there's a lot of training that needs to be done, but I believe this is a great step in all the cities around the country. Yeah. So shout out to Bart.
Akil, Kelli says, look, I'm on. This works. You know, it's a step in the right direction. Not just in transit, though. Are there other spaces like school resource officers in the public schools where we can do some of these shifts? Is that possible?
I think it's possible. I think the thing that, I mean, it's an alternative, better than, you know, people, especially in the school space, you know, young people being beat up by like school cops and, you know, non-teaching assistants when they shouldn't be beat up. But one of the things I worry about is that I think we have to look out for is like, you know, what's the end goal? You know, what's the ideology that, because the same structure that is providing for the biweekly paychecks for the police officers that, you know, people are trying to defund are providing the paychecks for the social workers as well. So those structures are the same, right? So we have to think of like, what is the mission? What is the vision? And if it's still about maintaining the status quo and a reform is being done to kind of give the appearance that real change is happening, when in fact it's not, then it's still going to be problematic. Because I think back to, you know, the autobiography of Malcolm. He's describing like the social workers in Harlem. You know, the men, like a lot of times it would be men and the black women would be there with the children. They'd be single. And then, you know, they basically would like extort, these social workers would be extorting these black women. And a lot of children running around in Harlem, you know, with, you know, half black, half white children because of that. So if there's that same type of mentality, or if you have people with kind of bourgeois values, you know, going into the hood and going to the inner city that don't really have respect for the humanity of these people that they're supposed to be servicing. But it's like, okay, but I'm not a police officer. I'm not going to like, you know, tase you or shoot you in your head. But I'm still going to dehumanize you. We just have to be careful, like if that's real, and try to figure out ways to prevent that from happening, you know, while we are subject to these systems.
You bring up great points. I mean, look, if the brain doesn't change, then no matter what body part it is, it's still going to have the same mentality, still have the same focal point or same goal. And so, yeah, we can add some more legs as opposed to using these arms. But if the goal is still to harm, then they just kick more as opposed to punch. Those are great points, Akil. So broadcast audience, I want you to not only pay attention to that, but also post your comments and thoughts around this story. Let us know what you think. I think, to Kelly's point, the reallocations are happening, job roles are happening, and that's something that we need to take a look at, those changes. To Akil's point as well, if the same entity is still cutting the check, then we have to make sure that the mentality and culture actually shifts as well, not just a job duty. Otherwise, we have same results over again. I always love hearing from both of you. You bring up great points all the time. Kelli, spread love. That's not just a hashtag. That's not just a cool T-shirt. That's a mission. That's an organization that's doing tremendous work in the space. Tell the broadcast audience how they can connect with you and the Spread Love movement.
Sure, it's good to be back. Thank you. And Akil, it's great to see you, brother. Our Freedom School family. But SpreadKarma.org is a fundraising platform for change makers. And we started a year ago changing the narrative around how we seek funding. And we've already crowdfunded as a people. Crowdfunding is not an old idea. However, SpreadKarma.org is a crowdfunding platform that you can come seek funding if you're fundraising for a social impact cause. Check us out, SpreadKarma.org. We'll help you get fundraising for a good cause. And then if you are seeking to give, I am pushing this philanthropy, but not just philanthropy, but in the Black space. Black philanthropists is nothing new. However, we're all over the place. We're giving back and we're reinvesting in our communities all the time. But is there a place where you can go and streamline your dollars for the maximum impact? So SpreadKarma.org is a place if you're looking to support socially impactful causes in any underrepresented community, not just Black. You can do that on SpreadKarma.org. We're looking to create a fund. We actually have a few funds set, but we're looking to create funds around every area of need so that we as a community can begin to fund ourselves, and not just, in that notion of defunding the police to move funding around, but making sure that change makers in our communities every day, like Akil, is getting funding for stuff he needs. He's a change maker. He sees where the need is. He's already taking action. But why aren't we funding and supporting him more? This is why Spread Karma is around. SpreadKarma.org is a place to see all the good stuff going on and see how you can make an impact. You can set up recurring donations, monthly, yearly, or weekly. And you also, if you're a change maker looking to fundraise, can set up an account to receive donations. And so, like I said, Spread Karma is a Black-owned, women-owned, LGBTQ-owned startup right here in Baltimore, but I'm Philly born and raised.
Yeah.
And we're expanding, y'all. So we're also looking for investors. It's a tech platform. Come talk to me, reach out, Kelli at SpreadKarma.org, or check out SpreadKarma.org.
Listen, so in the chat, folk are like, awesome. I'm going to check out the site, and that's what it's about. We need to spread some love on SpreadLove.org. Get with the platform, get with Kelli, make sure you bring all the talent to bear. Investors, if you can, jump on board. We need these platforms to fund and take care of our communities. Is so important. And Kelli's mission and the team over at Spread Love, that mission is one that they are committed to. I've seen it for myself. And so please get involved. Nation, stand up and get behind one of our own. My brother Akil, the Pan-African Family Cooking Show. They're on the chat. They said, look, communities can't heal if there's impunity for the ones that created the harm in the first place, and they remain the controlling force, something you just brought up. And so, my brother, it's clear that your mind, you're one of the leading minds that we have in the education space, man. I look at what you're doing, I honor it, and love you, brother, for the work that you're doing. And so tell the broadcast audience, how do they connect with you and vibe with you on the issues of the day and the work that you're doing in the space?
So there's all this math. That's probably the best way to communicate with me. Allthismath.com. All this math, one word. All this math. Instagram at all this math. There's also on Facebook, Akil Parker. It's my government name. You can reach me that way. But yeah, in the year 2021, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be, kind of increasing what we've been doing with all this math in terms of really like putting it out there to the people. I know one of the things that Kelli mentioned, in terms of like, why aren't, we supporting me? And I will say this, I say like one of the things is that, I do get a lot of support, and I think that I would get more. I'm one of the people probably, because I know there are a lot of people that, ask for support constantly on a regular basis and don't get it. But I'm probably one of the people that would probably get more support if I really asked, if I really put myself out there, So that's one of the things that I'm gonna start doing, that we're gonna, at all this math, that we're gonna start doing more of in 2021, because I really want it to be more than just offering mathematics tutoring, mathematics instruction, and mathematics consulting on the education side. Is really just generally speaking, just marketing mathematics to Black people, because it's never been. Well, actually, let me track what I was about to say. Mathematics has been marketed to us, but it has been marketed to us consistently as something that is not for us. So what we're trying to do is market it as something that is for us, that always has been for us, and it's going to have to be for us in order for us to survive, in order for us to thrive, and in order for us to just, build, whether we're trying to build communities, whether we're trying to run businesses successfully, whether we're trying to just develop, and impart critical thinking skills to our young children, so they can grow and be able to think critically. Because a lot of times we think of mathematics, because of our formal educational experience, we think of it as just sitting in a classroom and solving, two-step equations with variables on a chalkboard or a dry erase board. But really, what it does, it trains our mind, it trains our mentality to be able to recognize and think critically in any situation. So we see something on the mainstream media that is just, we could tell like, no, this is not true, or this can't be true, or they're trying to spin this way to get us to think this. Like, that's really a mathematical process that we're doing intellectually. And the more, math is one of those train our minds and our brains so that we can recognize those types of things. And we definitely, need to always be on the lookout and always be able to protect ourselves, especially in a white, a Eurocentric capitalist exploitative society like the one that we live in currently. We need to be able to defend ourselves. So all this math is going to be doing more with, just marketing mathematics, marketing education, and also creating like a place for like Black mathematics educators to come together so the young people can see that, oh yeah, so we should talk about Imhotep. We should do that, being a great mathematician from 3,000 years ago. But young people also need to see Black in 2000 mathematics, and have excelled at mathematics, and and have this skill, so they don't, they think, oh well, this is something that I could do too. So they have that type of exemplar or role model that they can identify with. So those are some of the types of things that we'd like to do. I see somebody type all that math. It's all this math.
All this math. A lot of people
get
that not only in the chat.
Switch that up.
We're also
www.allthismath.com.
We'll post it in our social media as well to make sure that we're pumping Spread Love and all this math as well. Two amazing programs that need our support. You have some in the chat that are asking to volunteer, so check out the chat. Akil.
If I could just say one more thing.
Yeah, really quick. Go ahead.
Let's talk. Send me your email. Definitely send me your email. Well, if you go to the website, you can contact me through the website.
Cool. We'll make sure that we
if you go to the website allthismath.com, you can definitely
we'll make sure we promote it.
Because again, a lot of the conversations even around STEM are, unfortunately, they end up while well-meaning, and they do move.
I hear you. I think you're going.
Yeah, they move us forward, but a lot of us being able to develop infrastructure for ourselves. So there's there may be a push, or some organization may want to fund or provide opportunities for inner city children or, children of African descent to study mathematics or the STEM fields. But it's really only meant for them to go work for, established corporations already that already
play the role. Absolutely. And that's something that we do not want our kings and queens, our young kings and queens to do. Kelly and Akil are focused on doing
have our young people also thinking about, the politics involved, or that they can use their math skills, really all their skills to build community,
Absolutely.
So we can, we don't have to go work for Apple. We have to go work for Apple. They can compete with Apple. You don't have to work for Microsoft. They can compete with Microsoft. Like earlier, we were talking about Black Planet, like we don't have to, we don't have to do maybe not do the Facebook thing. We can develop our own infrastructure with those computer science skills, with those math skills, with those technology skills, and whatnot, so on and so forth.
So I have to go, but I honor both of you in the work that you're doing in the space. I think it's so important. I think we lost him. Let me try and get him back in. I think it's really important that we continue to promote this. I have to go and get to my next segment, but I'm going to make sure that we continue to promote and push what you're doing. Broadcast audience, please get behind all this math and spread some love as well. You can do both of them at the same time. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. Akil, Kelly, I love you. I respect you. I honor you and appreciate the work that both of you are doing in the space.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. And I want to just make sure everybody knows it's SpreadKarma. We have the love shirts, but it's the brand is SpreadKarma, SpreadKarma.org.
SpreadKarma.org. Make sure you get there and check it out. And I have one of those shirts. So next week I need to have a shirt on. So yes. I apologize that I didn't have my shirt on today. Please charge it to my head and not my heart.
Thank you. Take care.
All right, Kelly. So SpreadKarma.org, make sure you check them out, please. The link is in the chats. We'll make sure we post it on our social media as well. So many ways for us to move and shake in the space. These two individuals, Dr. Aimy Steele, you know her. She's been on the show before. An amazing individual doing work in the political space, educational space, community leader. And you know Kevin Ghee as well. He's a writer. He's a producer, a director, but he also owns one of the most impactful, powerful, and resourceful security firms in the country. When we talk about high value individuals, when we talk about being able to tour and walk the country safely, whether that be domestic or, quite frankly, going across the pond, he does this work for a living. And one of the best in the country at this work. And so when we talk about the Capitol, securing our individuals there, when we talk about elected officials and the conversation around what was supposed to be done versus, what we thought should have been done, because I saw some of y'all posts. I don't know why the black man was running from the mob and he should have just emptied the clip. First of all, none of y'all seen that many white folk together running at you. You ain't never seen that, right? So that's number one. Number two, his training and communication told him to do something else. If you were a security expert, we might have known that, which is why later on they called him a hero, because he led them away from the high value individuals who he was supposed to protect and led them, quite frankly, into his team so that he had support. That level of restraint, that level of understanding of what to do in crisis is so important. And we have that to talk about, plus the people who climbed up the wall and kicked the door down in the first place. Then we have to talk about the impeachment. How do we deal with that in the days ahead, not just at 1600 Pennsylvania, but in our own communities? 50 states are talking about, some activity planned at all of our state capitals. On top of that, we have to prepare our communities for unification in the midst of what will be another divided year. I don't care what side you're on. It's going to be a divided year because 74 million voted for another administration. That's just the reality. And quite frankly, those 74 million amongst some others are having some interesting conversation within their own party about what should happen and how we've got to move the ball forward. On top of that, we have folk doing some crazy stuff like writing Trump on marine animals. I'm serious. I don't even know how else to say this. I mean, somebody literally scraped the name Trump on a manatee. I don't. So the one time I dove in the water and actually spent some time underwater, it was swimming with the sharks and the stingrays, which I will never do again because there's some things that happen in the water that shouldn't have happened to a grown man. But my ego became deflated very quickly when you run up against a shark. I don't even understand how you get away and what gives you the gall and even the desire to scrape the name Trump on a manatee. But yet we have folk in our country doing these kind of things. And so we're going to talk about all of that with Dr. Aimy Steele and Kevin Ghee, experts in their own right, tremendous leaders in the space. Brother Kevin, Dr. Aimy, it is so good to see you both on Heart City. Welcome back home and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, brother. How are you?
Hey, listen, the lights are on. I got about 2 pieces of chicken in the fridge. You know, God is good. Only do it.
Yes, indeed.
Happy New Year.
How are you?
I am well, thank you. I come in peace.
We come in peace. That is our new slogan of 2021. I come in peace. I don't want any work in these streets right now. Listen, the streets are hot, Kev. Everybody thinks that they're a security expert. They knew, they were mall cop. They were Otis. What you gonna do that boy? We saw all of that on Facebook. Everybody knew the right thing to do to control this mob. I saw how you expertly and wisely handled some of those communications on Facebook where folks said, my grandfather was in World War II. He showed me how to shoot. Okay. And Kev's like, your theory versus my real life application is two different things. Talk about that moment where obviously Brother Eugene, the Capitol officer who led those individuals into the corridor properly as he was called to do at that time. Talk about your assessment of those moments versus what we believe on social media.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on again. And I think we need to understand what the mandate is for the Capitol Police. They're there to protect the people, not the building. First and foremost, and that's what most people don't know and don't understand. They're there for the people. So folks kicking doors, breaking down doors, they're not going to really react to that because their protocol is to protect the people first. So once they go into that mode and they start protecting the people, you see what happened when the people were threatened. The woman was shot.
Yeah. So
it wasn't that the police weren't shooting because they were afraid to shoot. They were handling their job based on their protocols. And I get the excitement when folks see things and Facebook gives you the platform to speak as if you're an expert, never having done anything, And this is why I tried to explain to the person you were talking about. Yeah. Your family may have talked to you about situations, but you haven't trained for it. You haven't been in it. You can't speak with authority to it. Trying to put some psychosemantics on that officer because he was black and the mob was white, it took away from actually what he was doing. Yeah. And it was his job, protecting people, being the hero that he was. Yeah. The idea that, and I know Brother Bilal was on talking about the guns and all as well. The idea that just because you have a gun, it means you're supposed to start shooting.
Right.
That's why we're in the situation we're in our communities now.
Yeah.
When you have a gun, the best thing to do is to retreat. Right. Because you have the power to take a life. So I carry guns every day. Yeah. I don't get in silly arguments. Mm-hmm. It doesn't make sense to put yourself in a situation where it may escalate to that point where you have to use it. So it's just a psychology thing, man.
No, you bring up a great point. Many believe that if I have that full clip and I've got some cold metal on my hip, that gives me the card to be able to be as flex as I want to be. I'm able to be as braggadocious or as aggressive as I want to be, when in fact de-escalation is really the charge of the day when you have that level of responsibility on your hip.
And also, people have to understand that guns don't make you bulletproof.
Come
Just
on.
because you got a gun don't mean you can't get it.
Yeah, yeah.
And I guarantee you, the folks that I work with, the folks that I train with, you'll never see it coming. Right. So you can be armed to the teeth. You'll never see it coming because that's not what we do.
Yeah.
You know, and then when we do pull it, it's to be used and it will be used. So, you know, it's just the psychology behind this idea of, because I have a gun,
right,
I'm well protected. Even now with everything that's going on and there's a rush to buy these guns, I get it. I'm not against it. I'm all for it. But it's one thing to know how to shoot it. It's another thing to know when to shoot it.
There you go.
You understand?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And I think that with the Capitol thing, if Officer Eugene Goodman did fire upon them, he would be righteous in doing it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but what's the bigger narrative there?
There you go.
People still weren't safe. So if I empty my 15-round clip, get mobbed, beat, stomped to death, now these people are still in jeopardy. And I just riled up the people that was, you know, rushing the building. So it's so much that goes into how these things are done.
Yeah.
And why they're done.
So, Dr. Steele, you're a mother, you're an educator, you're an advocate. The children in Concord, North Carolina, that community is made better because of your leadership in the education space. It seems that we are having to have some really grown conversation with our young people nowadays. You know, long gone are the days, probably when Kevin and I were growing up, it was about stickball, you know, and whatever else was the game of the day. Now we're telling kids or having to explain to children why people climbed up the halls of Congress, why you know people are breaking into Congress, why a nation really is divided. It's a heavy head to have that kind of crown of leadership on not just for you, but for others in the space. Talk about where you are as an educator and a leader in that space. What are some of the conversations we need to have with our children who now see this stuff on YouTube and you know, social media and have questions and their minds are being shaped in all kinds of ways?
Right. So first of all, thank you so much for having me. I think one of the first things we have to do is really understand that, you know, as parents or as leaders in our community, we are the ones that have the first opportunity to introduce this information to our students and to our kids and to our children. So if we enter a space saying, I'm the first one here, let me frame the narrative for my kids, then we have more power. If we enter at the end of that time frame, after they've had exposure to watching it on YouTube over and over again, watching it on TikTok, you know, creating some kind of narrative around what it looks like with their friends, and then they've seen it on CNN playing all day and MSNBC playing all day and Fox News playing all day, and then they've talked about it in class, perhaps online, virtually with their friends, then we don't make it to that space with any credibility of, baby, this is not how this goes. This is not what we should do, and this is not how we should act. So that's number one. If you see the images coming, or if you as a parent know that this story is getting ready to break and maybe your kids hadn't been exposed to it, go ahead and turn the TV off, right? And figure out a way to go have that conversation with your kids to frame it properly for them before they get exposed to all these unfiltered images and videos and commentary that we then can't dial back. I don't think people process how psychologically kids are faring in this pandemic. Just real quick, when you deal with what happened at the Capitol, teachers have to then say, all right, am I going to continue my current lesson plan? Or am I going to insert this information and then call it history and then talk about the social ramifications of it? But if I do that, then I have to introduce racial injustice, the maltreatment of, you know, whites as opposed to blacks, or blacks as opposed to whites when it comes to protesting and interacting with police and protest manner, riot manner, whatever you want to call it. So the teacher has to then reframe the whole thing, you know, when a current event happens. Again, if you're the parent, you want to be the one to have that conversation first so that you could be the first to the table with the most credibility. But psychologically, if we as parents are struggling, how do you think the kids are doing? And they don't even have the intellectual, capacity based on their age to handle all the information that we have coming in about news and about what's going on at the Capitol building and white supremacy and hatred. And, they're learning new words all the time. So their newest word is insurrection,
Right, right.
So,
Sedition, right.
Yeah, we just have to be careful.
So Kev, hearing, Dr. Aimy talk about, the confusion of a parent, I'm not sure where to go with this, right? Because in the middle of my kid playing Roblox, they're watching people climb up a wall. They're watching, a Capitol Police be beat with a flagpole and some really ridiculous stuff, right? So as a security professional, one who's in the space, who does this for a living, who protects dignitaries and the like, what are some of the conversations or words of advice that you want to give to our educational professionals, parents who are looking to have these conversations?
Well, just as Dr. Steele said, you have to head off these conversations before it gets to the point where they're inundated with what TikTok or Instagram says.
Yeah.
You have to bring reality back to them. And the sad part about it now is I don't know what to say to these kids.
Wow.
Because at this point, if the feds don't get it right with these charges, at this point, how can local authorities police?
Yeah.
What do I tell my kid when he just seen an attack on a country?
Right.
If that was, and I hate to play this game, but really, if that was Muslims that stormed the Capitol, we would have waged war with every community in the Middle East.
Absolutely.
But here, it appears now. Again, the feds did come out and say that they're going to ramp the charges up as they go, and I understand the politics of it all, but they have to get this right, because once this is 6 months down the line, then policing in these communities still have to go on. And with that 2006 FBI report that says white supremacists have infiltrated police departments, how do I now really listen to what you're saying to me when you might have been at this insurrection at the Capitol? It's hard right now. It is very hard. And when I talk to my son, I just told him, stay out the way. Wow. Right now, let's stay out the way.
Okay.
Let things come down, and let's figure out where we are and where we're going.
And so you bring up a great point when you talk about, law enforcement being able to attend a rally, and insurrection happening with law enforcement present, off duty or not. They were in the crowd. And so there's this civic, street law, constitutional lesson, Dr. Aimy, that goes where we're now saying, hey, here's free speech and the ability to have a conversation, but then what's the responsibility of the badge? Because we know in Black and brown communities, we've seen some pretty interesting things take place, and there's perception that we have to deal with, especially with our young folk. But we even had a Philadelphia detective, one who was, and here's the craziest part about it. This individual was the one who served on the committee to basically research your social media to know whether or not you're fit to serve.
And how about this?
But yet they're on their social media trashing the president, the vice president for not supporting the president. And then we had detectives that showed up at the rallies.
But now how about this? That same detective that was part of the background research. Remember, last year, it was an academy class that had no Black people in it. So now you have to question, was that by design?
Yes.
So when you see how convoluted this gets now?
Oh yeah. So we could go even deeper than that. So prior to that, if people remember when we were back on radio, which you were a part of, Brother Kevin, and we brought in Sister Rochelle Bilal before she became sheriff. When she was sitting at Guardian Civic League, and we made a call to action. Year 2, I said, look, let's find 50 brothers who are willing to go into the force. Let's go into the force together as a class. We put it out, we broadcast, Sister Rochelle came in, we talked about it. Look, we're going to help you through this. We're going to get you physically fit, get you prepared for everything. And I said myself, if those 50 get involved, I would go in to the academy. Like I put that out, and I was serious about that and changing the course of my own life in terms of service. Kev, we couldn't get 10 because most of the brothers were like, yo, it's not whether I have warrants or, you know, any of the wild stuff that they think. Mm-hmm. I'm going to get to, I already know because my man applied, and we're just going to get to the mental side, and they're just going to deem me unfit. Or they're just going to, you know, look at my social media and go, oh, because I was hanging with somebody that has this kind of shirt on with an afro, you know, fist on it, then I'm going to be looked at as a militant and washed away. To your point, there is breadcrumbs, man, that leads down that road.
Mm-hmm. So I'm a big proponent of we need more Black officers on the job. I've pushed, I've talked about it. I even tried to organize where we go to these Division II, Division III colleges.
Okay.
For those players that's not going to make it to the league,
yeah,
they have the education, they have the size, they have the smarts. Let's get them on these police forces.
Right.
You know, I know that the FBI and the Secret Service, they scoop them up on a D1 level, and they scoop a lot of those guys up. A lot of them are former athletes, but on that lower college level,
yeah,
these local police departments need to get together and start going to get these folks. Because here's the thing: when I was on the job, and I was on the job during the crack era, during the crack wars, rather. Okay, so you want to talk about violence, and you want to talk about fighting. We seen it all night, every day. So it was busy in those streets, but we didn't shoot our guns as much as the cops do today. Part of that was because the officers that I worked with, we understood the temperament. So if you put me in a situation that I don't understand the language, I don't understand the people, I don't understand the energy, I'm probably going to go to my gun.
Yeah.
But you put Black officers who recognize when somebody's posturing or when somebody's real.
Right.
See, and that's the key. You got to understand when somebody's posturing and when somebody's real. Now, again, I'm not saying that every time somebody's posturing, they're not real. Because once they spot fear in you, and if you listen to people that have killed cops, they said once they saw the fear in them, they knew it was time to go. So it's man, listen, I'm ready to work behind the scenes and do what we got to do, but also our community has to change the perception of how we see law enforcement. Because as brother Bilal said earlier, 200 shootings in a city, that's the issue. You know, 500 homicides. Okay, that's you know, that's the leaves from the root, and the root is the shootings.
Right.
We got to get to that.
So Doc, you know, Brother Kevin says it really clear. Look, we're talking about a leave conversation when we should be underground, looking at the roots, digging it up, or at least addressing those roots. I know you have much to say around this issue, especially with our young folk, but then also as a community leader, not just in the political space, but in the civic space.
Right. So I wanted to address just a comment about, you know, going down to the root. So, you know, when we look at the root cause of why people don't necessarily trust the police as a whole, or why the Black community has challenges with trusting the police, I mean, we have to go back to why were the police even formed, and what were the tenets behind their initial formation, and how did people come to trust them or deal with them over the years. So it started in this modern nation as a protection of equipment and a protection of, you know, possessions and, you know, ships and things like that, and protecting the merchandise. Then it continued into, you know, making sure people were being monitored who were drinking and carrying on and, you know, hanging out in bars and things like that. Then we got into the modernized police departments of today. And so when we got into those, then we started seeing, you know, intimidation by some of the police officers as it relates to precinct officers and being in precincts. So we see the connection between voting and elections and police officers maintaining control over what those sections or those areas look like, intimidating voters as they were coming to vote for people. You know, and then we get into the modern day police, the way they're organized. My husband is a former cop, so I respect the cops as a principal. I've worked with cops all throughout my educational career, either as a teacher with a school resource officer, or truancy cop, or SROs when I was a principal and just, dealing with some of the investigative things. I remember being at school one time and a man got arrested right in front of my eyes. There are, like, I've been in the space of respecting law enforcement. And I've lived with a law enforcement officer who was a detective, who was a police officer on the beat, who was a deputized U.S. Marshal. What I'm here to tell you is my husband is a very special man. He's very kind, considerate, and he is one you can trust.
Yeah.
Everybody ain't like my husband.
Right.
They're just not. And so when we go into that space of really understanding why the community doesn't really trust police officers or law enforcement, it's not as a whole, but it's in general. That's why you couldn't find more than 10 people who wanted to apply for the job. They already knew what the barriers were going to be. And until we break down those systemic barriers, it really is going to be challenging to hire law enforcement officers that are diverse, that are able to, still have a living wage and pay their take care of their families for the fees that they're paid or the salaries they're paid, and then be able to gain the trust of the community. So community policing is, in theory, a great idea, and it needs to be really addressed in local communities, because that's how people are going to start to get over this thing of not trusting the cops. And furthermore, when we start having conversations with our kids about what happened with the police and how these particular rioters were treated differently than the protesters who were engaged in the BLM protest, which I organized a protest march with some friends locally in an organization that I'm a member of. But when we look at the differences between that, how can we explain to our kids that, there's good in this? No, there isn't. We got to be honest. There isn't any good in this. Yeah. These people were treated differently, and these people were treated differently. There's two systems of justice in this country, and we have to own that, and we have to recognize that, and that's what we have to teach our kids. And then how do we operate within those two systems of justice? Because what happened in the Capitol included some law enforcement officers and some military members who have now had to be vetted in order to come to the inauguration next week.
What's interesting about what you said, quite frankly, folk are scared of the reporting that's getting ready to come out, because they made it clear, look, when we tell y'all what just went down, it's going to be a problem. When you hear who's been involved and how deep this thing went, it's going to go from speculation to confirmation, and we're going to have a whole nother conversation. In the chats, Doug Reed, Black Men Heal and Synergy Reform, says, look, Dr. Aimy Steele is speaking the truth in all aspects of law enforcement. Listen, Brother Kev, people thought I was joking when I talked about the manatee having the name Trump on it. So we're going to pull this up on the screen. I just want y'all to see this. There's a $5,000 reward offered for information on the individual who scraped Trump into a manatee's back.
They need to look inside.
Kev, they got in the water with a manatee. Some of us don't want to get in the water with each other, let alone a manatee. Yeah. And then scraped Trump on the manatee's back. For those who are unfamiliar with the size of a manatee, it's bigger than us. I'm just going to leave it at that. So, this isn't something you just strolling up on. This isn't a snapping turtle or some catfish that you've seen in New Orleans.
It's a stingray.
Yeah, come on, man. This is major. And so a manatee has the size and girth of like a baby hippo. Like this is a big animal, but yet, Kev, the mentality of the individuals that we're dealing with is somewhere else. And it didn't just start with jumping up and trying to climb into the Capitol.
No. It's been present since the formation of this country. Let's be clear. This is not something new. This is something that's been ever present. Now, how it's, the Trump empowered these folks to be bold enough to come out and say, this is who I am. This is what it is. This is what we'll do. That's the scary part, because my biggest fear, the Capitol, the feds, they'll handle that. My biggest fear is when these folks take it to the street.
Yeah.
Back when they stormed the Capitol in Michigan, I had made a comment and said this was a dry run because I study how terrorists move and I understand that, you know, this. So I got a lot of blowback. Oh no, this was just no, this wasn't.
Yeah,
we're starting to see this psychosis of they own this. We're starting to see this manifest now. The question is, how do we move forward? What are we going to do on a whole? Because this is not a black thing or a white thing. This is all of us. We all got to figure this out. So how do we do this on a whole? And I think it starts inside the home with each individual speaking, like the doctor said, explaining the history of this, where we are today. There was Black Lives Matter in the insurgents. There was a difference in how that was handled and how that's being viewed. I'm telling you, honestly, I don't have the answers today.
Right.
You know, my concern now for my family and my community is that we stay safe. Because one of the guys that was locked up for that DC thing had 11 pipe bombs in his truck.
Yeah.
3 guns.
Yeah.
And a whole lot of ammo. That's not for play.
No.
That's another level of it's about to go down.
Yeah.
So we really have to understand, you know, I keep seeing, and this irritates me. This ain't our fight. Black people don't, like, this is absolutely our fight.
Yeah.
Because again, if they were successful, how do you think that impacts us? What do you mean this is not our fight? This is definitely our fight. They're trying to take it back to a time of 18. They had the Confederate flags. Like, we need to really have a come to Jesus moment and be honest with where we are as a people, where we are as a community, where we are as a country.
So it's interesting that you say that. Brother Kamari Ellis, he's on our comments on the Facebook feed. He said, look, you know, if this were to come to the black communities, this will be tragic. To your point. Yeah. Brother Kev, this is our war. This is a battle that we have to have, and not so much. And I want Ray and Junebug to understand when Brother Kev says this is our war, he's not saying for you to go get that gun that you just started shooting, you know, at 9th and Washington. That's not what he's saying. What he's saying is we need to be, you know, aware of what's happening, make sure that we're having real conversations in the space and being realistic about what we can and can't do. That's the other piece. Donald Black says, look, to all of you, great points, well made. I worked with Kev as a cop in North Central Philly for years. He nailed it on having an understanding of the community and situations and the use of deadly force. We definitely need to wake up as a people. And so, Dr. Steele.
Yep.
Kev, social media, if we're going to be honest, 2/3 of those extremist groups, and I got 7 minutes to get through this, but I'm going to throw as much of this to you as I can in these 7. 2/3 of the Facebook extremist groups were literally referred to those groups by Facebook's algorithm. It's clear. So whether Twitter and Facebook or Instagram block the president, they played a role in creating all the minions.
Let me say this. Let me interject real quick.
Sure.
That was a positive.
I agree. I'm with you.
So while I'm for them banning Trump, I don't want them to ban those groups.
Yeah.
Because what happens is they close ranks. And once they close ranks, they can't be monitored.
Yep.
You see what I'm saying? So again, if they're on there talking about, let's go here and start killing folks, no, you got to take that down.
Yeah.
But the groups themselves, this is how we got all the information we got now, because they were on social media talking about it. So I don't believe that, you know, everything should be wiped away, because we need to be able to see these folks coming. We need to be able to monitor them, you know, so the algorithms are only going to go to what you're already involved in.
All the triggers.
Clicking on this and you're looking at this and you're looking at that, the algorithm is going to show that in your feed.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
No. Finish your thought.
Yeah. So I'm okay with the algorithms saying, hey, here's a group that you may be interested in, because we need to know that you're interested in that, especially if you're law enforcement. I need to know that you know, in Philadelphia, man, Philadelphia got to clean up. What about the cop with the swastika on his arm?
Come on, bro. Come on. The Trump
paraphernalia. Now, again, I'm not against any officer who wants to vote for Trump. That's fine. That's your business. That's your business. But when we start to see the type of rhetoric that this man is putting out there, now I have to question your allegiance to a person like that. And then I have to question, can you successfully go into a community that's not reflective of yourself and police it?
Well, and so here's the other thing. If another cop, a black cop, had a emblem or a tattoo of the old Black Panther movement, would he be targeted as a potential for firing because of his representation? Right. So the standard is different. I think that's what we're saying. The standard is always different. And let me say this before, because I know we got to go. So algorithm, what's the responsibility of social media platforms to then connect and collaborate with law enforcement? A lot of times as teachers and principals, you know, we have to collaborate with law enforcement. So if a business or an entity knows of some illegal activity, what is their responsibility? What's their social responsibility for humankind to collaborate with law enforcement and inform them of what's going on? And then lastly, I will say this about the police. I didn't complete the story about the evolution of cops. They then were, right after the turn of the 19th century, they were then shifted into watching after slaves and chasing after slaves and monitoring their activity before then shifting over into the Jim Crow era and monitoring what blacks were doing. So there's always been this distrust in the black community, and we have to own that. So where do we go from here? We got to organize.
We were 3/5 of a man, right? And so
also, can I just say to the doctor's point? Yeah, that was the origins. I didn't become an officer so I can do this to my people. I became an officer, and I God's honest truth. My cousin and I joined the academy together, and this is what precipitated that. We were going to play football at Rock Garden down in off the drive. There's about 7 of us walking, and the police just stopped us.
Wow!
Come here, you know. We're like, so we thought we need to get on this force again. In full disclosure, we're second generation officers as well. Our fathers were cops. So, but we said we need to get on because we are underrepresented for that job, because they should be able to know who's doing what, but they don't. But then when you get on it, see, now this is the other part. You get to deal with it head on all day, every day. So now I'm starting to see, okay, hold on. There's a problem in our community that is more widespread than the general public knows. And we need to deal with that. So it's a lot. I think these conversations need to be done behind doors, figure this out, and then implement it. Because all the conversations that's going on social media, they'll run with what the doctor said. Oh, they was chasing slaves and now they chase us. Well, hell, some of us need to be chased.
Right.
I mean, if you want to keep it a buck, 2,200 people don't get shot by law-abiding citizens.
Right.
But before we go, let me tell you what those 2,200 shots did. They kept in fear people, law-abiding citizens who cannot come out of their house. You know, I remember an old lady when I was on a job. She was afraid to go to the supermarket to get herself something to eat because they were shooting so much. This is what it does. It holds hostage a community. Right. And this is why policing is needed. This is why black cops are needed. Because that offended me. Because at the time, that lady was 70, and this is in the 90s.
Yeah.
Right.
She lived through Jim Crow. You know what I'm saying? She lived through all this to be afraid of people that look like her grandkids or great grandkids.
So then you have to ask yourself, it's okay. We got to understand the history before we can move forward. So when you talk about next steps, it is centrally important to understand where we came from, how we got here, and then use that as an advantage. In Julius Wilson's The Truly Disadvantaged, I think it's Julius Wilson, but The Truly Disadvantaged, she talked about when the middle-class blacks moved away from some of the inner city neighborhoods, and then those neighborhoods started to deteriorate, then the welfare system came in. You got to understand all those processes so that you can really break down what does the system look like right now, and then how do I infiltrate the system and fix it from the inside out, because it's so deeply entrenched in our society. You may not have joined the force for the reasons that other people did, but somebody did. And how many somebodies? And then now we're looking at them scaling the Capitol building and really causing havoc in our society. And then people don't trust. So we got to build that back, but we have to organize in our own communities. That's what I'm doing.
You're spot on. Listen, broadcast audience, I'm going to extend this for another 10 minutes. You guys bear with us because there's a lot of conversation in the chat. And I want to make sure that we really get the true thoughts and continued thoughts of our leaders in the space. So Mark Beaver on our Facebook feed, he says, look, so should we be able to shut people down? Freedom of speech. Who defines hate speech? Could the church be defined that way as hate speech? This is my fear. And it's the fear of many. We talk about young folk who are going, look, it's censorship as far as we're concerned. Leave Trump alone. You know, we and to your point, Kev, there are others going, no, I need to know who they are. Don't send them back into hiding. You know, so yes, there is an element that allows them to do some levels of coordination. We should not allow them to plan in a million, supremacist march. But at the same time, we do need to know what they're thinking, because there is no COINTELPRO for white supremacists right now. It ain't happening. So we got to be honest. There's no concerted effort of any law enforcement to delve into white supremacy in this way. And so I want to pull up something really quick. It seems like it's unrelated, but it's very related to this issue as we talk about banning the president and others. Kanye West, a woman, just admitted, social media influencer, TikTok. Her name is Ava Louise. She created a rumor of Kanye West and Jeffree Star being together. That meme went around the world that Kanye West left Kim Kardashian for Jeffree Star. It was a total lie. It was quite disrespectful to Kanye himself, and disrespectful to Jeffree Star as well. I mean, it's not true. Okay, the woman was called out for that lie that she created, and she said, "Yeah, I did it. It was a lie, but you're welcome." Hope you guys enjoyed the memes. And so when we talk about censorship, when we talk about banning individuals, where do we need to go in this space? Both of you see it from multiple angles. As community leaders, education on your side, and civic, Dr. Steele, for you, Kevin, definitely law enforcement, protecting high value targets who think about these things, as well as municipalities who have to understand social media and its intricacies. But, so if we can ban Trump for what his lawyers are going to argue is a loosely incited riot, in loose terms, as far as he's concerned, what happens on the other side when we have people who are deliberately destroying people's lives with
those folks need to be banned as well, because what that did was, let's say you got some fanatic Kanye fans, they're going to start attacking the transgender community.
Yeah, you
see what I'm saying? So people that incite that type of violence, yeah, they need to be banned. Yeah. Because here's the thing: this is not an attack on your freedom of speech. You can say what you want. This is a private platform, and they got the right to pick and choose what they want to go through their platforms. The government is not censoring you. You can say what you want. Put a billboard on your house if that's what you want to say. So I don't have a problem when people incite violence. I don't have a problem with them their voice being snatched off of these platforms.
Well, and here's the other thing. So it's the intent of the user, and what are they intending? If they're intending, as he said, to incite some violence and promote some hate speech, then yes, there should be a level of censorship. And if you are censored, again, on a private platform, you hadn't been arrested for your speech. That's where your freedom of speech comes in. You just said it. Somebody didn't like it. They shut you down. So therefore, you hadn't been arrested. So you still have your freedom of speech.
Wow.
What's the problem?
Great point. That is a great. So I'll be honest. I never even thought about it in that way. Listen, your freedom of speech is not impacted. Just your ability to use my server.
That's right. Go tell somebody else. Tell your neighbor. Tell your friend. Choose another platform.
Now that's the official Baptist preacher. Go tell your neighbor.
Phone a friend. Tell a neighbor.
So, to a YouTube user who just commented, Sonia Sessom, she said, "Look, this topic is so it's complex. This thing is all over the place. There's so many moving parts." What are some of the action steps, really quickly? Kev, I'll start with you. 60 seconds. What are some of the action steps we need to take to address? I mean, really, we covered the gambit. So I mean, you pick one.
So I think all the thought leaders need to sit down with law enforcement and figure this out, and come and talk about some real truths, and then we figure it out together.
Who are those thought leaders? What do they look like to you in your mind?
They look like the panel that you had on your show today. Okay. Those are the real thought leaders. I'm not talking about city council. I ain't talking about them dudes that sit on third floor. You know, right. They're not getting it done as we see. Yeah. I'm talking about the grassroots people who are out here every day in these communities that can speak to the community. Because again, I saw Pastor Anderson was talking today, and he and I had to talk about going into the prisons. And I told him, you can go into the prison as a man of the cloth. I couldn't go in as a black officer.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So you can get to the people and talk to them where I could not. Or you can vouch for me to come in and talk. And that's what we need. We need the people that are at grassroots levels who understand what's going on to sit with the people that's in law enforcement and policymakers and say, listen, this is what's really going on.
Got it.
But we gotta have truth. We gotta have truth as well.
Truth and integrity in the message is so crucial. And to your point, that collaboration, Kev, that you just talked about, you know, someone who's warm in the space needs to be able to warm it up for another individual so that their perspective and voice gets in the space. Too often, everybody's trying to be the great American hero.
And that's the problem with social media. Everybody want to be seen as, you know, I'm this, I'm that.
Right.
You know, no, you're not. It's like the other day, the guy, I got 17 shots, I'm hitting 17 people. No, you're not.
Yeah.
That's not acting.
That to me, and it's no disrespect to anybody in their perspectives or anything like that. But when you talk about backing up marble stairs in the middle of a riot, okay, if you haven't even taken a defensive shooting course, if you haven't had, you know, shooting in close combat courses, in close quarters, there's just things that you do, Kev, on a daily basis that I wouldn't even dare talk about, whether I'm taking the course or not. I'm like, yeah, you better talk to Kev about how that goes down, right? And we can't watch, you know, these movies, John Wick and all this other stuff, and think that we're going to literally just light up a room. You have 17 bullets, you might get about 5 or 6 of them off in the crowd like that before they get to you. And
again, this man did not have his gun out. He still had to go for it. And look at the distance. The man was right up on him. So, you know, most cops, they train you to be 21 feet, which is only, 3 yards? You got professional athletes and some non-professional athletes that can close 40 yards in 4 seconds.
Yes, sir.
So how quick do you think I can close 3 yards?
Yep.
So, you know, when folks say, don't bring a knife to a gunfight.
Yeah.
If you do not have your gun out and I got a knife, I will kill you before you can get it. If I'm within those 3 feet, I guarantee you.
Yep. No,
very deadly. But, you know, not to change the subject. Yeah.
No, but because that's important, you know. And so when we talk about these things, I want people to understand that man was assessing the whole room and having to deal with protocol and having to deal with the politics of the scene and having to deal with cameras watching him. I mean, that brother was processing at a high level as a professional.
And this is why just going to the range does not work.
No, that paper target don't mean a damn thing. The
paper target is not screaming, it's not hollering, your heart rate is not up. There's so many factors that come into a real life situation. But you should train because it's muscle memory also. Because in those high stress situations, there's been situations where people felt like they was pulling the trigger, but never shot a bullet.
Never did. Yep.
You know, so it's a lot, man. And like I said, I'm willing to sit down with anybody who really want to get this done. You know, check your ego at the door.
Yeah.
And let's get to the business.
So the first thing I'm going to tell the broadcast audience, get with Kevin Ghee, and I'm going to make sure before we close this out that he talks about how you can connect with him and his agency, what they do in the space. 2, I'm going to check my ego and apologize to you, Kev, because when we talked about getting blacks in law enforcement, you should have been one of the first that I talked to. I did not do it. Publicly, I'm telling you, bro, you were much better in the space than I will ever be, and so I apologize for not bringing your expertise in the room.
Hey, man, you know it's all love. It's all good too. I'm here for you. You know that.
No doubt, my brother. So, Doc, I got it off my chest. We had a Dr. Phil moment really quickly. I had to restore my brotherhood with my guy. But you know, what is it in your heart to the broadcast audience that we need to hear, know, understand, and put into place as we deal with these times moving forward?
So I think if we're going to see systemic change, we have to make sure our elected officials are the right elected officials, and we have grassroots organizations working in coordination with the elected officials to restructure the laws and restructure the system. And the only way that's going to happen is by making sure people are empowered to vote. So what I'm doing as a result of my recent electoral loss is I am organizing a grassroots organization centered on the same premises as the New Georgia Project down in Georgia, because I believe so heavily in the work they did, the work of Stacey Abrams, the work of organizer Ufat, and all of the women and the men who organized the community. They didn't just organize for voting. They organized the communities year round so that they could mobilize when necessary to vote and to do other things. They addressed food insecurity. They address housing insecurity. They address social issues that are still prevalent in communities after people come in, ask for their vote, and leave. And so that's the work I want to do. I want to carry the work from education, from the education system into the community, and do that year-round organizing. I will say this: when you empower communities to be leaders, they're already leaders. We just don't see them maybe as leaders because we hadn't enacted or interacted with them in a leadership way. But these are natural leaders within these communities. When you empower them with the resources they need, the funding they need, and the wherewithal to accomplish their mission, they will flourish. Yeah. And a lot of the organizations that Stacey Abrams and so many of the organizers talk about in Georgia, they were doing this work for decades, right? But they maybe weren't receiving the funding and the resources they needed to be able to access the people. Because, you know, when they receive the resources, they flourish, and then they're able to get messages out to communities to say, you know, hey, maybe some of y'all need to join the law enforcement agency. Hey, why don't we train a few of you to run for office? Hey, why don't some of you step up and, you know, be our leaders in our communities? But we have to recognize community leaders that look different from what we're accustomed to. They look a little bit different. So it might be the neighborhood mama or the big mama. I had a big mama growing up. Yeah. It's the big mama. Everybody comes to her porch. Everybody comes to her house. Everybody knows where she lives. They take care of her. They watch out for her. But she is in charge of 300 people. And everybody knows who she is. That's the leader that somebody need to go in there and pay to make sure that she's able to do the work of the community and keep her food pantry full so she can give food out and keep bills, you know, paid for people who suffer from not having enough income to pay their light bill and then end up, you know, maybe committing a crime to be able to pay for, you know, their bill. So that's the kind of work that we need to do. Deep organizing, rural organizing, because there are a lot of folks in rural communities that feel left behind. And then the work of really mobilizing our communities so they can recognize their power and vote some of these people out, change up some of these laws, and really impact the systems that we need to impact. So that's what I'm committed to doing.
And to your point, Doctor, some of those folks that we don't see as leaders are the young folks. Because if you remember the leaders back in the day, when we go back to Dr. King, even the Panthers, they were early 20s.
Absolutely.
That's right.
So we're talking about their activism started at 17, 18. And when we start to see them, they were 20, 21, 22. So we need to start tapping into these younger folks, getting them, because one, as often as language change in our communities, they speak it fluently. So they know how to reach these people that we need to get to. So I'm with you on that, Doc.
Listen, and to your point, Doc, you know, Big Mama, and I was fortunate to have a Big Mama too. She could leave her purse on the porch and nobody knew. Everybody knew. You better not touch that, boy. You better not even take out the church peppermints. Don't even take one of them because she's on your top, you know. And it's that level of respect rather than popularity. It's got to be the respect as opposed to the popularity. We elect so many popular folk.
Right.
But they don't
and to Kevin's point,
of the community.
To Kevin's point, we have all these famous YouTubers who are young, right? I have a student who is a famous YouTuber, 1.8 million subscribers.
Wow.
She can literally, like, that is an organized community.
Yeah.
She could literally mobilize her community to do all sorts of things.
Wow.
Now, would she choose to use it for a certain, social justice platform or a certain social issue? Maybe, maybe not. But the power she has to do that is incredible.
Indeed.
And that's where we can make an impact.
So, both of you bring up some amazing points. I want to be very clear. Stacey Abrams, for those who are celebrating Georgia and understanding that piece, and I need us not to get into the gender conversation, guys, because understand, even with Warnock and Ossoff, Warnock won with 90% of black male votes. So let's stop acting like black men don't vote and don't get engaged. They do in these spaces when they're communicated to, and to Dr. Steele's point, when they're messaged properly. That's important. Don't come in my barbershop telling me, you got a plan to bring reparations. We're not trying to hear that in the middle of our shape up. Well, I don't have a shape up no more. Me and Kev don't. But
beard.
For the beard, for the other folks. That's not what we want to hear. But I will say this: understand, in politics, when you tell a black woman no in an election, she doesn't change careers; she changes the recipe. But you're gonna get that. You're gonna get.
You better know it. You better know it.
So understand, North Carolina, you're made better because of Dr. Aimy Steele. The nation will soon know Dr. Aimy Steele and the great work that she is doing, as well as my brother Kevin Ghee, protecting the country, not just in the private sector, but ensuring that all around the country we're having proper law enforcement LEO conversations, that we're talking about community relations between policing and the community in a proper context. Kev is at many tables that none of us will ever know the table even existed. He's in those rooms advocating for us. And so I love you both. I honor you both and respect you. For the next 10 seconds, tell the broadcast audience, Kev, how they can get in touch with you and your organization.
They can't, honestly. You can't. So,
man, but
you have my number, and those who sit down and talk to, we'll talk to, but you can't.
No, listen, I respect that, because if you were like, listen, my number is like 1-800 secure the place. I'll be like,
what I do and what we charge, most people can't afford it.
It's not even in their space. So we're thankful again, man, that you showed up and gave your wisdom and insight to this conversation. I know you're on the job even now, doing what you need to do. And so brother, know that we love you, honor you, and respect you.
I love you too, brother.
Yes, sir.
Nice meeting you, Dr. Aimy.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Nice to meet you too. And if you want to connect with me, I am launching, like I said, a C3 or C4 organization coming up soon. But in the meantime, you can connect with me at Aimy Steele on all platforms. And that's AIMY, because I always aim high. So AIMY Steele, STEELE. And that's on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Aimy Steele.
Doc, you already know Kendall sent both of y'all an email by now. I know, knowing Kendall, she probably tweeted both of y'all and sent a private message. But no, I'm excited about the great potential that exists between both of you and making sure that our community as a whole is made the better for it. Dr. Steele, we love you, honor you, and truly appreciate you for all that you do in the space. Thank you both.
Thank you.
So we've heard from Dr. Aimy Steele and my brother Kevin Ghee. This show has been absolutely amazing. Marnisha Vernine James on our Facebook feed said, look, this has been very enlightening. As a social services professional for over 2 decades, I definitely think it all starts at home, and it takes a village to make a change. It absolutely does. You are a part of our village, and thank you so much for hanging in there with us for over 2 hours of great programming and knowledge and wisdom from professionals. Here's what I need you to do. If this show's been a blessing to you, you don't even have to Cash App us or any of that. We just need you to subscribe. Go to the YouTube channel, click the link, subscribe today, become a member of the Heart City family. You'll get updates, notifications, bonus content, and more. And we do our question of the day on Swell. Download that app, Swell. Check it out in Google Play or the Apple Store. You can leave your voice message. We will begin to play your responses on the show itself. Again, this is a multifaceted approach. We need everyone. It does take a village, not just to raise the child, but to keep the village prosperous and to keep it flourishing. And so you are a major part of that. We love you, honor you, and appreciate you for everything that you do. You can find us on social media, HeartCity TV, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And as always, feel beautiful, look beautiful, act beautifully. Why? Because you truly are beautiful. I love you. This is Malik Boyd, host of Heart City. We'll soon see you next week.